Welcome to Kleppers Corner Today in History, where we treat one date, today, as a microcosm of human ambition, contradiction, and surprise. I'm your host, and over the next several minutes, we'll travel through time on October 18th, encountering labor strikes, literary misfires, cosmic probes, rights struggles, and bold returns. Think of it as a date-based mixtape of power, hope, folly, and sometimes redemption. Let's dive in. Segment 1. The first American labor union, 1648. We begin in 1648 in Boston, where a group of shoemakers quietly did something radical. They formed what's often considered the first American labor union. Yes, before there was an industrial revolution, before factory whistles, before union cards, there were cobblers debating collective strength. Now pause for a moment. Shoemakers, the hardest workers on the smallest scale. They didn't have enormous machines, they had awls, leather, and patience. And they said, hey, maybe we ought to band together. It's a little like ants deciding to unionize against the anteater. That got dark quickly, sorry. This is a foundational moment in North American labor history. It shows that even in small trades, the impulse to resist arbitrary power and to negotiate together was alive early. It's easy to romanticize colonial life as pastoral, serene, but here's a reminder. Even in 1648, the basic tension between capital and labor was germinating. Joke time. Imagine a 17th century shoemakers meeting. All right, Garrett, you cut the leather, don't skimp on the vamp. And Tomas, you stitch up the seam, no more pinching those soles. And by the way, from now on, we demand 2 fish dinners per week and no more flogging by foremen. Historical records don't show whether those exact demands were made, but the spirit is clear. Collective bargaining has humble roots. As an aside, one could see a direct line from these Massachusetts shoemakers to modern unions today. Plumbers, teachers, tech industry workers. The impulse is the same. Many small actors trying to balance a system tilted by scale. Segment 2, battle, earthquake, and mutilation. Medieval to early modern upheavals. We leap ahead now through time to October 18th in earlier centuries, full of battles, catastrophes, and global encounters. In 1016, Canute the Great of Denmark defeated the English at Assendon, consolidating his claim on England. The title King of all England would shift back and forth, but that day marks how rulers carved up sovereignty in brutal contests. It's almost comedic to think of modern politicians barging over small issues. Back then, they barged with axes, swords, and ships. Then, in 1081, the Normans defeated the Byzantines at Dyrrhachium, a key battle in the long struggle over the Adriatic coast. It was a crossroads of power between East and West, a reminder that the medieval world wasn't static, but in constant flux. In 1356, the city of Basel, modern Switzerland, was struck by a devastating earthquake. For medieval minds, earthquakes weren't just natural disasters. They were symbolic, often framed as divine judgments. The rebuilding altered trade routes, urban plans, even local demographics. And just to add colonial spice, in 1540, Hernando de Soto's forces destroyed the fortified town of Mobila in present-day Alabama, killing a paramount chief and thousands of warriors. That's colonial violence writ large, one of many brutal encounters in early European Native American history. Also, in 1565, the Battle of Fukuda Bay marked the first recorded naval clash between Japan and a Western power. It hints at the uneasy dance between isolation and engagement, tradition and adaptation that would characterize much of East Asia's modern history. Here's a little tangent. Human beings seem to alternate between 2 modes, build and bash. On the same date, you have construction, cities, trade, and you have destruction, conquest, rupture. History is never just linear. It's often oscillatory. Segment 3. Revolution, Emancipation, and the Burning of Falmouth, 1775 to 1779. Now we land in the American Revolutionary era. October 18th, 1775. The British Royal Navy, under Captain Henry Mowat, shelled and burned the town of Falmouth, modern-day Portland, Maine, to punish its revolutionary sympathy. Meanwhile, in a striking contrast, Phyllis Wheatley, the formerly enslaved African-American poet, was formally freed on that same day. Pause. 2 stories on one day, one of violent suppression, one of personal deliverance. freedom was being tested, redefined, broken, and reassembled during the founding years. Then in 1779, the Franco-American siege of Savannah was lifted, marking a British victory in the south of the American theater. The revolutionaries had to contend with stretched lines, divided fronts, and the limitations of external alliances. The war wasn't a tidy narrative of heroes and villains. Its geography, logistics, and resources often dictated outcomes more than ideals. Here's a joke. If colonial rebels had a group chat, the thread on October 18th, 1775 might read, Paul Revere, "They're shelling Falmouth again." Someone else, "Ugh, can't we pick a less windy day for naval bombardment?" Wheatley, typing silently, "Hey, I got my papers today." Other side, British Admiral, "Burn, baby, burn. Just a town, not the ship." That day reminds us, revolution is messy. It's built on aspiration, but also on destruction, negotiation, and contradiction. Segment 4, Alaska Purchase, Seward's Folly, 1867. On October 18, 1867, the United States formally took possession of Alaska from Russia in a ceremony at Sitka. The deal cost $7.2 million. Many contemporaries ridiculed it. Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, Wall Russia. People thought we'd bought perpetual snow and nothing else. But time proved otherwise. Gold fever boomed in the Yukon in the 1890s. Alaska's strategic value exploded in World War II, the Cold War, and today's climate and energy politics. Russia exited North America. We became an Arctic nation. Seward's Folly turned out to be prophetic. The joke here? Imagine the U.S. Treasury Department in 1867. Secretary of State Seward, "We hand you the deeds to Alaska." Senator opposite, "So what do we do with it? Ice skating rinks?" Seward, "We wait." Also whales, minerals, pipelines, battleships. Later, Treasury Auditor, 1870, "Why are there penguins here?" This is awkward. We often mock far-sighted ideas early because immediate return is rare. But land, resources, geopolitics, they move slowly. Seward wasn't just buying frozen wilderness. He was projecting power and future possibility. Segment 5, Moby Dick's Rocky Voyage, 1851. On October 18, 1851, a little-known American novel titled The Whale was published in London. A month later, the U.S. edition appeared as Moby Dick or The Whale. It flopped. Critics called it overambitious, confusing, even mad. British reviewers dismissed it as ill-compounded, and one said Melville's writing was maniacal, mad as a March hare. Part of the problem? The London edition omitted the epilogue, making it appear that no one survived. Readers were baffled. But even with the epilogue, the mix of narrative, philosophy, digression, theology, and allegory was simply too much for its time. Melville died in obscurity, poor and marginalized. But in the 20th century, modernist readers rediscovered Moby Dick, saw its existential depths, its formal audacity, its moral complexity. It's now a foundational text in the American canon. The novel's arc is itself a history lesson. Genius, unrecognized in its time, vindicated by future frames. Joke. Publishers in 1851 meeting. Publisher, Melville, is this novel long enough? Melville, what if we had chapters on satology, theology, and the metaphysics of obsession? Publisher, I think that's too much. Melville sneers. You'll see, one day every philosopher and sailor will quote me. Then silence, then crickets. Publisher buries the invoice. It teaches, art rarely follows market logic at first. Sometimes the future has to catch up. Segment 6, Persons Case, Women Are Persons, 1929. Fast forward to Canada in the 20th century. 5 women from Alberta, Emily Murphy, Nellie McClung, Henrietta Muir Edwards, Louise McKinney, Irene Parlby, challenged the constitutional interpretation that persons meant men only. After losing in Canada's highest court, they appealed to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in Britain. On October 18, 1929, the Privy Council ruled, yes, women are persons eligible for appointment to the Senate. Person's case became a landmark in women's rights and constitutional law. However, and this is essential nuance, some of the famous five supported eugenics and racist policies, including forced sterilization of marginalized individuals. Their legacy is powerful but conflicted. History rarely lines up clean heroes and zero flaws. Joke. Picture the hearing. Lord Justice, so you argue persons includes women. Murphy. Yes, sir. Also cats, eventually. Justice. Cats. Murphy. Winks. One step at a time. This case shows that legal change is often incremental and that the people we celebrate must be held to full scrutiny. The same individuals can help expand justice in some arenas while constricting it in others. Segment 7, First Contact, Venera 4 on Venus, 1967. On October 18, 1967, the Soviet probe Venera 4 on Venus entered the atmosphere of Venus, becoming the first human-made object to sample another planet's air and transmit data back. The results were revolutionary. The atmosphere was almost entirely CO2, with crushing pressure, extreme temperature, essentially uninhabitable hell, not Earth's sibling. This mission reopened assumptions. Scientists had speculated maybe Venus had a wet climate, perhaps life. Instead, Venera 4 commanded a kind of cosmic mic drop. Not so much. Joke, mission control, engineer, atmospheric readings coming in, carbon dioxide everywhere. Scientist, well, that settles it. Venus is the world's least hospitable greenhouse. Engineer, deadpan, at least it's consistent. Venera 4 marked a turning point. We moved from distant observers, telescopes, to direct explorers. It reframed what we look for in habitable worlds, and it taught humility. Even close neighbors in space can be entirely alien worlds. Segment 8, Other milestones, war, broadcasting, DNA, protest, Budo. This date also carries other threads. In 1912, the First Balkan War began. Ottoman power in Europe would crumble, sowing the seeds for World War I. In 1922, the BBC, British Broadcasting Company, was founded, presaging the modern age of media. In 1931, Al Capone was convicted of tax evasion. Mobsters don't often lose their numbers, but that one did. In 1945, Klaus Fuchs passed bomb plans to the Soviets, a crucial moment in the dawn of the Cold War. In 1962, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins were awarded the Nobel for the DNA double helix, a molecular turning point. In 1968, Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fists in silent protest at the Mexico City Olympics, making a global statement on racial justice. In 1989, Atlantis launched mission STS-34, sending Galileo toward Jupiter, tying into the theme of planetary exploration. In 2007, Benazir Bhutto returned to Pakistan after exile, greeted by massive crowds, only to face a deadly assassination attempt. Her ambition and the fragility of Pakistani democracy were placed into violent tension in a single day. Finally, on October 18th, we also remember deaths. Thomas Edison, 1931. Colin Powell, 2021. Charles Babbage, 1871. Bess Truman, 1982. Innovators, leaders, enablers of our technological and political era. Gone, but their legacies ripple forward. Also, in 2025, a planned nationwide protest in the U.S. under the banner No Kings is scheduled for October 18th, echoing the very spirit of revolution, democracy, and resistance. History is being summoned as a symbol. Segment 9, Birthdays, Barry, Trudeau, and a double resonance. October 18th gave birth to two titans. Chuck Berry, 1926, a founding father of rock and roll. He blended rhythm and blues with narrative guitar riffs. Songs like Johnny B. Good are more than nostalgic hits. They're blueprints for modern music. His influence spanned race, geography, genre. Pierre Trudeau, 1919, once Prime Minister of Canada. Multilingual, complex, ambitious. His legacy includes patriating the Canadian Constitution, championing bilingualism and multiculturalism, and confronting Quebec separatism. One is a cultural force, one is a political force, but both pushed boundaries. Barry in sound, Trudeau in identity and national structure. Their shared birthday suggests that influence can ripple from art or law, from stage or parliament. Imagine birthday candles. Barry wishes for another guitar bridge. Trudeau wishes for political unity. Possibly their birthdays in 1926 and 1919 didn't intersect materially, but symbolically, they share the same drumbeat: transformation. Conclusion: the tapestry remains alive. So what do these threads tell us, taken together? October 18th is not a random anniversary. It's a day where boundaries shift, where the underdog demands voice, where science disrupts assumptions, where power is both contested and remembered. We see the slow building of rights, shoemakers, women's personhood, the clash of war and empire, the transformation of public imagination, Moby Dick, Barry, and the bold reach beyond Earth, the Nera, Galileo. We also see that the past is not dead. Indeed, in 2025, activists plan to invoke this very date as symbolic resistance to perceived authoritarian overreach. If history is alive, then a single date, when rightly observed, can ask us, what do we inherit and what will we hand on? What was contested and what remains unfinished? Thank you for traveling with me through October 18th's panorama. Next time you glance at a calendar, remember, it's not just a day. It might be a deep resonance of past struggles, future possibilities, and the unpredictable dance between them. That's Kleppers Corner Today in History.